Do not ever speak to my son again. Richard Whitmore's voice cracked across the library like a whip. The hardcover book slipped from Maya Brooks's hands as the billionaire snatched it away and dropped it onto the polished oak floor. The sharp smack echoed through the room. Every employee nearby froze. The grandfather clock kept ticking. Ethan Whitmore stood at the doorway, his small fingers gripping the frame so tightly his knuckles turned pale. Maya lowered her eyes. I was only helping him with his reading, sir. Richard let out a cold laugh. You are here to clean my house, not educate my child. The afternoon sun poured through 20-foot windows, painting golden bars across the marble floor. Dust floated in the light like suspended ash. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Maya quietly bent down and picked up the book. She brushed a thumb across the cover before setting it on a nearby table. Her hands remained steady, but Ethan looked like he might cry. Richard noticed and immediately stepped between them. Go back to your room. Ethan did not move. Dad, now? The boy flinched. Maya felt the air leave the room. Something was wrong. Not just with Richard's anger. Not just with Ethan's silence. Something deeper. Something nobody in this mansion seemed willing to say out loud. Ethan had barely spoken to anyone in months. Tutors came and left. Therapists came and left. Specialists arrived in black SUVs and disappeared weeks later. Yet somehow, whenever Maya was nearby, the boy talked. Sometimes only a few words. Sometimes entire conversations. Richard hated that fact. Maybe because he could not explain it. Maybe because he could not control it. Ethan slowly turned and walked away. His footsteps faded down the hallway. Richard exhaled through his nose. You are finished for today. Maya nodded. Yes, sir. She started toward the service corridor. And Maya? She stopped. Stay away from him. The words landed harder than she expected. She swallowed and kept walking. The mansion felt colder now. The scent of furniture polish mixed with the distant hum of the climate control system. Outside, storm clouds gathered beyond the massive windows. In the kitchen, employees avoided eye contact as she hung her apron. Everyone had heard. Nobody said a word. Maya grabbed her bag and headed for the back entrance. Just before she reached the door, she noticed something sticking out of one of her books. A folded piece of paper. Her brow furrowed. She opened it carefully. Her heartbeat slowed. Then stopped. The handwriting belonged to Ethan. 3 shaky lines. Just 6 words. She read them twice. A chill crawled up her spine. At that exact moment, upstairs, a loud crash shattered the silence of the mansion. Someone screamed Ethan's name. Running footsteps thundered through the hallway. Richard's voice followed, louder than before. Panicked this time. Truly panicked. Maya looked down at the note again. The color drained from her face. Because the message Ethan had secretly left her only minutes earlier should have been impossible. It read, Tonight he finally finds the truth. Ethan! Richard's voice thundered through the mansion as footsteps pounded across marble floors. Maya froze beside the back door, the folded note still trembling in her hand. Upstairs, another crash echoed through the house. Glass rattled. A lamp hit the floor somewhere beyond the grand staircase. Staff members rushed into the hallway, their faces pale under the warm chandelier light. Maya turned back instinctively. She should leave. Richard had made that painfully clear. Yet something about Ethan's note refused to let her walk away. Tonight he finally finds the truth. The words felt less like a child's message and more like a warning. She hurried toward the sound. At the end of the upstairs corridor, Richard stood outside Ethan's bedroom. The billionaire's expensive suit jacket hung half off one shoulder. For the first time, he did not look powerful. He looked scared. The bedroom door was locked. Ethan, open the door. No answer. Richard knocked harder. Son! Silence. The air felt heavy. Thick. Then came a faint sound from inside. Not crying. Not panic. The soft rustling of paper. Maya stepped closer. Richard immediately turned. His eyes hardened. What are you doing up here? I heard the noise. I told you to leave. Maybe later. The words escaped before she could stop them. Several staff members exchanged nervous glances. Nobody had ever spoken to Richard Whitmore that way. His jaw tightened. This is not your concern. Maya looked at the locked door. It is if Ethan is involved. The hallway went silent. Richard stared at her. The challenge in her voice unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Before he could respond, the bedroom door clicked open. Ethan stood there holding a thick blue folder against his chest. His eyes were red, but steady. The boy looked directly at his father. You lied to me. Richard blinked. What? Ethan's small hands tightened around the folder. You told me Mom stopped writing because she was too sick. A chill swept through the hallway. Richard's face lost color. Maya felt her stomach drop. Ethan slowly opened the folder. Dozens of envelopes spilled onto the hardwood floor. Letters. Hundreds of pages. Some yellowed with age. Some unopened. The staff stared. Richard stared. Nobody moved. I found them in the storage room, Ethan whispered. All of them. The grandfather clock downstairs chimed once. The sound seemed impossibly loud. Richard looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. Maya watched the billionaire's hands begin to shake. Just slightly. Just enough. Ethan, Richard said carefully. Give me the folder. No. The answer came instantly. She wrote to me every month. Tears filled the boy's eyes. For 2 years. Richard took a step forward. Ethan stepped back. The distance between them felt enormous. Maya suddenly understood. The loneliness. The anger. The silence that had swallowed Ethan whole. None of it had started at school. None of it had started after his mother's death. It started with secrets. Dangerous ones. Ethan pulled a single envelope from the stack. The paper trembled in his fingers. And this one. His voice cracked. This one was addressed to you. Richard froze. Every person in the hallway froze with him. Ethan slowly turned the envelope around. Across the front, written in elegant handwriting, were 7 words that made Richard Whitmore's face go completely white. Maya saw them too. And in that instant she realized the truth Ethan had uncovered was far bigger than anyone imagined. The envelope read, Richard, if you are reading this, they lied to both of us. The hallway seemed to shrink around them. Nobody spoke. Nobody even bent down to pick up the scattered letters. The crystal chandelier above reflected pale light across the polished floor, turning the envelopes into bright white fragments spread between father and son. Richard Whitmore stared at the words on the envelope as if they had been carved into stone. Ethan's breathing grew uneven. Maya watched the billionaire's face carefully. Something had changed. The certainty was gone. The control was gone. For the first time all evening, Richard looked like a man standing on unstable ground. Give it to me, he said quietly. Ethan shook his head. You never let me read her letters. Ethan. Why? The question cut through the silence. Richard opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Staff members exchanged nervous glances. One housekeeper slowly lowered her eyes. Another stepped backward as though she should not be witnessing this. Maya noticed something nobody else seemed to see. Richard was afraid. Not angry. Afraid. The distinction mattered. Ethan carefully unfolded the letter. The paper crackled in the still air. Richard took a step forward. Stop. The word came out sharper than intended. Ethan flinched. Maya immediately moved closer. Not between them. Just close enough. Richard noticed. His jaw tightened. Stay out of this. Maya held his gaze. Then tell him the truth. The words landed hard. Several heads turned toward her. Richard's eyes narrowed. You think you understand my family? No. Maya's voice remained calm. But I understand what secrets do to children. For a moment, nobody spoke. The grandfather clock ticked somewhere below. Ethan looked from Maya to his father. Then back again. The boy slowly lowered the letter. You knew. Richard's shoulders stiffened. Ethan, you knew she was writing. Maya felt the pressure building in the room. Like a storm pressing against glass. Then came something nobody expected. A phone began ringing. Loud. Sharp. Startling. Richard reached into his jacket. The screen glowed against his palm. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then his expression changed. The color drained from his face. Sir? One employee whispered. Richard did not answer. He accepted the call and lifted the phone to his ear. Silence. Then a voice spoke from the speaker. A woman's voice. Soft. Familiar. Every muscle in Richard's body locked. Ethan froze. The hallway froze. Maya felt chills spread across her arms. Richard. The voice cracked slightly. If this number still belongs to you, please listen. Ethan's eyes widened. Mom? Richard nearly dropped the phone. The recording continued. I do not know if this message will ever reach you. I do not know who I can trust anymore. The sound quality was rough, filled with static and distant wind. Yet the emotion was unmistakable. Richard's wife. Ethan's mother. The woman they believed they had lost years ago. Tears instantly filled Ethan's eyes. Richard gripped the phone tighter. This is impossible, he whispered. The recording continued. If Ethan ever hears this, tell him I never stopped writing. Maya looked at Richard. The billionaire's carefully constructed world was cracking apart in real time. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. The timestamp on the screen caught her attention. Her eyes narrowed. The message was not years old. It was only 3 days old. Maya's pulse jumped. She stepped closer. Richard. He barely heard her. Richard. This time he looked up. Maya pointed at the screen. Look at the date. Richard followed her finger. The moment he saw it, his entire expression changed. Ethan saw it too. 3 days ago. Not years ago. Not months ago. 3 days. The recording ended with a burst of static. Then one final sentence. One sentence that turned the air ice cold. If you receive this, do not trust the man standing beside you. The call disconnected. Every eye in the hallway slowly turned toward the same person. And the man they were looking at suddenly took one nervous step backward. The silence shattered instantly. Every eye locked on to Charles Bennett, Richard Whitmore's longtime chief advisor. The man who had stood beside him for nearly 15 years. The man who was standing only 6 feet away when the voice on the recording warned them not to trust him. Charles forced a smile. It looked painful. Artificial. This is ridiculous. Nobody answered. The cold light from the chandelier reflected off the silver cufflinks at his wrists. A faint tremor ran through his fingers. Richard noticed. Ethan noticed. Maya noticed first. Say something, Ethan whispered. Charles swallowed. Someone is manipulating you. The explanation sounded weak even to him. Several staff members exchanged uneasy looks. A younger employee slowly lowered her phone after secretly recording the scene. The tiny camera lens reflected a flash of light. Charles saw it and immediately stiffened. Put that away. His voice came out sharper than intended. The employee froze. Richard stepped forward. Why would she say your name? Charles laughed once. Short. Dry. I do not know. Maya's eyes narrowed. Something was bothering her. Something small. She looked at the phone still resting in Richard's hand. Then at Charles. Then back at the screen. Her pulse quickened. Play it again. Richard frowned. What? The recording. Charles immediately shook his head. There is no point. Maya looked directly at him. Play it again. The tension in the hallway tightened like a cable being pulled to its limit. Richard pressed the button. Static filled the air once more. The voice returned. Soft. Emotional. Fragile. Everyone listened. This time Maya did not focus on the words. She focused on the background noise. A faint vibration. A metallic hum. Rhythmic. Consistent. Her eyes widened slightly. Stop. Richard paused the recording. What? Maya stepped closer. Play the last 10 seconds. Charles shifted his weight. Almost imperceptibly. Maya noticed anyway. The audio replayed. Static. Wind. Then the metallic vibration again. The sound seemed insignificant. But Maya recognized it instantly. Her father had spent 20 years repairing industrial generators. She had grown up around mechanical noise. Certain sounds stayed with you forever. That is not wind, she said quietly. Richard stared at her. What are you talking about? That sound. She pointed at the phone. It is a backup generator. Charles immediately laughed. Too quickly. You identified a location from a few seconds of audio? Maya ignored him. Not just any generator. She looked at Richard. A commercial unit. The hallway fell silent again. Charles folded his arms. This is absurd. Maya took another step forward. And there is more. Richard's face hardened. Explain. She inhaled slowly. The vibration pattern changes every 7 seconds. That happens when the generator is powering refrigeration equipment. Ethan blinked. Like a warehouse? Maya nodded. Or a storage facility. Charles rolled his eyes dramatically. This is becoming a fantasy. But his voice lacked confidence now. Richard noticed the sweat forming near his collar. So did everyone else. Maya continued. The recording is 3 days old. She was somewhere industrial. Somewhere with backup power. Somewhere cold enough to require commercial refrigeration. Richard's breathing became heavier. Hope and fear collided across his face. You figured all that out from a recording? I am a teacher. Maya's voice remained calm. I spend every day noticing things children think adults will miss. Charles suddenly stepped forward. Enough. The word echoed through the hallway. Everyone turned. His composure was cracking. Richard, this woman is a maid. She is guessing. The insult landed exactly as intended. Staff members lowered their eyes. Ethan's face hardened. But Maya did not react. She simply watched him. Watching too carefully. Then she noticed something else. Charles's right hand. The expensive watch. The polished metal band. A tiny scratch near the clasp. Her stomach tightened. She had seen that scratch before. Earlier that evening. On a photograph. One hidden inside the stack of letters Ethan found. Maya's heartbeat stopped. Slowly she looked up. Charles noticed her expression. For the first time all night, real fear appeared in his eyes. Maya turned toward Richard. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I know where I have seen that watch before. And before anyone could respond, the mansion's security alarm suddenly exploded to life. The security alarm screamed through the mansion like a blade tearing through silence. Red emergency lights flashed across polished walls and glass display cases. The warm golden glow vanished, replaced by sharp pulses of crimson that made every face look unfamiliar. Nobody moved for half a second. Then chaos erupted. Staff members rushed into the hallway. Phones appeared. Cameras started recording. The sound of footsteps echoed through the estate. Richard Whitmore turned toward the nearest security guard. What is happening? The guard pressed a finger against his earpiece. His face immediately changed. Sir, he hesitated. The East Archive room has been accessed. Richard froze. Ethan looked confused. Maya felt a chill spread down her spine. The East Archive room. She remembered hearing employees whisper about it months ago. A locked section of the mansion nobody entered without authorization. Charles Bennett's expression hardened instantly. Too instantly. Maya noticed. Shut the alarm down! Charles snapped. The guard did not move. Sir, protocol requires a full verification. Charles took a step forward. I said shut it down. The command echoed through the corridor. Several employees exchanged uneasy glances. Richard slowly turned toward him. Why are you so concerned about that room? For the first time in 15 years, suspicion entered Richard's voice when speaking to his closest advisor. Charles noticed. The crack had begun. Small. Dangerous. Ethan looked between the two men. His hands tightened around the stack of letters. Dad? Richard did not answer. His eyes remained fixed on Charles. The mansion's emergency generators suddenly activated. A deep mechanical vibration rolled through the floors beneath their feet. The sound was unmistakable. Maya's heart skipped. The same vibration. The same rhythm. 7-second intervals. Her eyes widened. She listened carefully. The hum traveled through the walls and metal framework. Exactly like the sound from the recording. Exactly? Richard. Her voice was quiet. Nobody heard her. Richard. This time he looked. Maya pointed downward. Listen. The entire hallway fell silent except for the machinery. The vibration pulsed again. 7 seconds. Then again. 7 seconds. Richard's face slowly changed. Charles noticed. Sweat appeared near his temple. Maya stepped forward. Your wife's recording. Another vibration. This is the same generator. Nobody spoke. Another pulse rolled beneath their feet. Ethan's eyes widened. Richard stared at the floor. Then at Maya. Then at Charles. The realization hit him like cold water. You are saying? Maya nodded. The sound did not come from some warehouse. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. It came from this property. The hallway exploded with murmurs. Employees looked at one another. Someone dropped a phone. Another person began recording openly. Charles laughed. Too loudly. Too fast. That is impossible. But nobody believed him. Not anymore. Richard took a slow step toward his advisor. Is it? Charles's confidence cracked. Just for a second. But everyone saw it. Ethan saw it most clearly. The boy's face hardened. You knew. Charles immediately shook his head. No, you knew where Mom's letters were. No, you knew about the recording. No. His answers came faster each time. More desperate. More frightened. Maya suddenly noticed something else. One of the letters lying on the floor had slipped open during the confusion. A photograph protruded from the envelope. Just enough to reveal a corner. Maya bent down. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pulled it free. The image was old. Faded. Taken years ago. Richard saw it. Ethan saw it. Charles saw it. And the moment Charles saw the photograph, the color drained completely from his face. Maya slowly turned it over. Her pulse hammered in her ears. The photo showed Richard's wife standing beside a man. Not Richard. Not a stranger. Charles Bennett. Younger. Smiling. Standing far closer to her than anyone expected. The hallway went dead silent. Even the whispers stopped. Richard stared at the image. His breathing became uneven. Ethan looked like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Nobody knew what to say. Then Maya noticed something written on the back. A date. A location. And 3 handwritten words that made her stomach drop. She looked up slowly at Richard. I think your wife wanted someone to find this. Richard swallowed hard. What does it say? Maya stared at the handwriting one final time. Then she read the words aloud. If anything happens. Her voice faltered. Every eye locked onto her. Ask Charles why. No one spoke after Maya read the words. The emergency alarm had finally gone silent. The generator still hummed somewhere deep beneath the mansion, but even that sound seemed distant now. The photograph rested in Maya's hand. Light from the flashing security panels reflected across its worn surface like cold water. Richard Whitmore stared at it without blinking. Charles Bennett did not move. He looked as though even breathing had become dangerous. Around them, employees stood frozen in the hallway. Phones remained raised, but nobody was recording anymore. The moment felt too heavy. Too personal. Ethan slowly stepped closer to Maya. Not to his father. To her. Richard noticed. The realization hurt more than he expected. Hours earlier, he had dismissed her as a maid. Ordered her away from his son. Treated her like she did not belong in the room. Yet now she was the only person holding the pieces together. Maya carefully turned the photograph over again. Her eyes remained fixed on the handwriting. Calm. Focused. Almost unsettlingly calm. Charles finally broke the silence. That picture proves nothing. His voice sounded smaller now. Weaker. The confidence was gone. Maya looked up. Maybe. Another silence followed. But you are afraid of it. Charles opened his mouth. No words came. Several employees exchanged glances. Richard watched the interaction carefully. Something about Maya's composure made everyone else seem louder. More desperate. The mansion suddenly felt different. The hierarchy had shifted without anyone noticing. Richard was still the billionaire. Charles was still the advisor. Maya was still wearing the same simple uniform. Yet somehow she had become the center of gravity in the room. Ethan looked at her. What do we do now? Maya lowered her eyes briefly. Then she looked toward the end of the hallway. Toward the service elevator. Toward the east wing. The locked archive room. We stop guessing. The words landed softly. But they changed everything. Richard followed her gaze. His pulse quickened. For the first time all night, he realized something that should have been obvious hours ago. Every clue had pointed somewhere inside his own property. The letters. The recording. The photograph. The generator sound. Not outside. Not somewhere distant. Here. A cold sensation crawled up his spine. Charles noticed where everyone was looking. His face tightened. Richard. The advisor stepped forward. Think carefully before you turn this into a spectacle. Richard slowly looked at him. A spectacle? His voice was quiet. Dangerous. Charles swallowed. There are investors involved. Partners. The board. Richard almost laughed. The sound contained no humor. My son thought his mother abandoned him. The hallway became silent again. My wife may have been trying to reach us. Another pause. And you are worried about investors? Charles looked away first. That was all it took. Everyone saw it. Maya saw something else. A tiny movement. Charles's hand briefly touched his jacket pocket. Protective. Instinctive. As though checking something was still there. Maya narrowed her eyes. She did not say anything. Not yet. The distant elevator motor suddenly came alive. A low mechanical vibration echoed through the walls. Everyone turned. The service elevator at the far end of the corridor was moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Someone inside was coming up. Nobody had called it. The digital floor indicator glowed red. 3. 4. 5. The numbers climbed one by one. The atmosphere tightened. Ethan stepped closer to his father. Richard barely noticed. His eyes remained fixed on the elevator doors. 6. 7. 8. Charles's face had gone completely pale. Maya noticed that too. Who is down there? Richard asked. No one answered. The elevator continued rising. 9. 10. 11. A phone vibrated somewhere in the crowd. Nobody checked it. The sound disappeared almost immediately. The elevator reached the top floor. Stopped. The mechanical hum faded away. Silence flooded back in. The metal doors remained closed. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then a single notification sound echoed from inside the elevator. Soft. Sharp. Unmistakable. Maya's eyes widened. She knew that sound. She had heard it before. 3 days ago. At school. On Ethan's phone. Slowly, the elevator doors began to slide open. The elevator doors slid open inch by inch. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. The metallic track hissed softly through the silence while cold white light spilled from inside the cabin onto the marble floor. Richard felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Ethan stood frozen beside him. Charles Bennett looked as though every ounce of color had drained from his body. Then everyone saw it. The elevator was empty. A ripple of confusion swept through the hallway. Phones lowered. Staff exchanged uncertain glances. For one brief second it felt like the tension might collapse under its own weight. Then a phone began ringing. Inside the elevator. Resting alone on the floor. The screen glowed brightly against the brushed steel walls. Maya inhaled sharply. The ringtone was the same one she had heard in Ethan's classroom days earlier. Ethan recognized it too. "That is Mom's phone." His voice barely rose above a whisper. Richard stared at the device as if it were impossible. The phone continued ringing. Once. Twice. 3 times. Nobody stepped forward. Charles took a small step backward instead. Maya noticed immediately. So did Richard. The call ended. Silence returned. Then the screen lit up again. A new notification appeared. One message. No sender name. Just 3 words. Check the phone. Ethan looked toward his father. Richard could not move. Maya walked forward. The crowd instinctively parted for her. No one told them to. No one questioned it. They simply moved aside. Hours earlier she had been the maid. Now every eye in the mansion followed her. Every decision seemed to pass through her first. The elevator motor clicked quietly as she entered the cabin. She picked up the phone. Warm. Recently used. Her pulse quickened. The lock screen was already open. Waiting. Almost as if someone knew exactly who would find it. Richard stepped closer. "What is on it?" Maya did not answer immediately. Her eyes scanned the screen. A gallery folder. Hundreds of files. Videos. Voice recordings. Photographs. Dates stretching back years. Her stomach tightened. Richard. The way she said his name made the hallway go silent again. Richard moved beside her. Maya opened the first video. The image appeared instantly. A woman sitting in front of a camera. Ethan gasped. Richard nearly stumbled. It was her. Older. Tired. But unmistakably her. Ethan's mother. Richard's wife. The room seemed to stop breathing. The recording timestamp showed 4 days earlier. 4 days. Not years. 4 days. The woman looked directly into the camera. If you are seeing this, then Maya found the phone. The hallway erupted into stunned whispers. Maya froze. Richard froze. Ethan stared at her. Even Charles looked shocked. The woman continued speaking. You do not know me, Maya. But I know who you are. A chill swept through the room. Maya's grip tightened around the device. I watched every parent-teacher conference. Every school report. Every letter Ethan wrote about you. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. You were kind when nobody noticed. You listened when nobody else heard him. Richard lowered his head. The humiliation hit him all at once. Every cruel word. Every dismissal. Every order to stay away from his son. The woman on the screen smiled sadly. You are the reason my son survived losing me. Nobody spoke. Several employees wiped tears from their eyes. The hierarchy inside the mansion shattered completely. Maya stood motionless. She had never met this woman. Yet somehow the woman had trusted her more than anyone else in the room. More than lawyers. More than executives. More than Charles. The video continued. Richard, if Maya is standing beside you right now, listen to her. Richard closed his eyes. The words landed harder than any accusation. Because she sees things the rest of us miss. The silence became overwhelming. Then the woman's expression changed. Serious now. Urgent. There is one more thing you need to know. Charles immediately stiffened. Maya noticed. Richard noticed. Everyone noticed. The woman looked directly into the camera. The reason I disappeared was not the reason you were told. The room went completely still. Then she spoke one final sentence before the video abruptly ended. A sentence so devastating that Richard felt the floor vanish beneath him. Richard, the person who betrayed us was never Charles. The words seemed to hang in the air long after the video ended. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the faint vibration from the generators felt distant now, reduced to a low hum beneath the crushing silence. Richard Whitmore stood motionless beside the elevator. The glow from the phone screen reflected in his eyes, but he was no longer looking at the device. He was looking at Maya. For the first time all night, truly looking at her. The woman he had dismissed. The woman he had ordered away from his son. The woman who had uncovered every piece of the truth while he stood surrounded by advisors, attorneys, and experts. Around them, employees slowly lowered their phones. Their expressions had changed completely. The curiosity was gone. The skepticism was gone. Something else had taken its place. Respect. Ethan looked up at Maya. His eyes were red, but calmer now. She knew about you. Maya swallowed quietly. Apparently. Ethan managed a small smile through the tears. She was right. The words landed harder than he realized. Richard heard them. So did everyone else. Charles Bennett leaned against the wall, looking exhausted. Broken, almost. Years of suspicion had been aimed at him in a matter of minutes. Yet somehow he seemed less angry than relieved. Maya noticed that too. Another detail nobody else seemed to catch. Richard finally spoke. His voice sounded rough. I owe you an apology. The entire hallway froze again. Several employees exchanged stunned looks. Nobody could remember the last time Richard Whitmore apologized to anyone. Maya remained still. You do not owe me anything. Richard almost laughed at that. A painful laugh. That is not true. His gaze dropped briefly toward the floor. Toward the scattered letters. Toward the photograph. Toward the evidence of years he could never get back. I judged you before I knew you. Silence followed. I decided who you were the moment I saw your uniform. The honesty surprised even him. Maya did not rush to answer. That somehow made the moment heavier. More real. The cold elevator light reflected off the tears gathering in Ethan's eyes. The boy stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Maya. The movement was small. Natural. Unplanned. Yet it changed the atmosphere instantly. Nobody reached for a camera. Nobody whispered. The mansion seemed to exhale. Maya gently rested a hand on Ethan's shoulder. Not dramatic. Not triumphant. Just steady. The way she had always been. Richard watched the scene and felt something shift inside him. For months he had thrown money at every problem. Specialists. Consultants. Security teams. Investigators. Yet the person who helped his son most had been standing inside his own house the entire time. Carrying books. Cleaning floors. Listening when nobody else did. A quiet vibration suddenly interrupted the silence. Maya looked down. The phone. Richard's wife's phone. Another notification appeared. Everyone saw it at the same moment. The screen displayed a single folder that had not been there before. Newly unlocked. Richard frowned. What is that? Maya opened it carefully. Inside was only one file. No description. No date. No title. Just a small video icon waiting to be pressed. The atmosphere tightened again. Not with panic this time. With anticipation. The kind that settles over a room moments before a truth changes everything. Ethan stepped closer. Richard stood beside him. Neither looked away from the screen. Maya hesitated. Something about the file felt different. Intentional. As if it had been left for this exact moment. For this exact audience. Around them, the crowd grew perfectly still. Even Charles lifted his head. Maya slowly raised her thumb toward the screen. Then she noticed one final detail beneath the file icon. Tiny text. Barely visible. A message left by the woman who had started all of this. Maya's breath caught. Richard leaned closer. Ethan did too. The message contained only 7 words. 7 words that instantly drained the remaining color from Richard's face. Maya read them silently once. Then again. Before anyone could ask what they said, she looked up. And for the first time all night, she seemed genuinely shaken. The screen glowed softly in her hand. The message read, "The truth begins after you watch this." The hallway remained silent as Maya pressed play. No alarms. No flashing lights. No rising panic. Just the soft glow of a phone screen reflected across tired faces. The video opened on Richard's wife sitting beside a window. Morning light spilled across her shoulders. She looked peaceful. Certain. Like someone who had finally decided to stop running from the truth. "If you are watching this," she said softly, "then everything hidden has finally come into the light." Nobody moved. The generators had fallen silent. The mansion itself seemed to be listening. Her eyes shifted toward the camera. "Richard, none of this happened because someone betrayed us." Richard's brow furrowed. "It happened because we stopped listening." The words landed gently. Yet they cut deeper than any accusation. She smiled sadly. "You trusted titles. Positions. Appearances." Richard lowered his eyes. Around him, employees stood motionless. Many remembered exactly how Maya had been treated. How quickly she had been dismissed. The woman on the screen continued. "The people who cared most were often the people nobody noticed." Maya looked away from the phone. The weight of every stare in the hallway had changed. It no longer felt like judgment. It felt like understanding. Ethan reached for her hand. She squeezed his gently. Nothing more. Nothing dramatic. Just reassurance. The video continued. "Charles was never my enemy." Across the room, Charles closed his eyes. A long breath escaped him. Years of suspicion seemed to leave his shoulders all at once. He was protecting promises he was never allowed to explain. Richard looked toward him. For a moment neither man spoke. Then Richard nodded. Small. Honest. The first real gesture of trust between them in years. The screen flickered slightly. "Richard, there is something else." Her voice softened. "You spent years trying to protect Ethan from pain." Ethan looked up. "But protection without trust becomes a cage." Richard's eyes filled. Not with dramatic tears. Just quiet regret. The kind that arrives when a person finally sees themselves clearly. The woman smiled. "Then Maya came into his life." The hallway grew still again. She listened when others instructed. She cared when others managed. She saw him. Ethan looked down, embarrassed by the truth of it. Maya remained silent. The praise seemed to make her uncomfortable. The woman laughed softly. "I never met her. Yet somehow I knew she was exactly who my son needed." Richard swallowed hard. Every cruel assumption he had made felt impossible to defend now. The uniform. The job title. The way he had decided her value before learning her name. The video ended with one final request. "When this is over, do not remember who was right. Remember who stayed kind." The screen went dark. No one spoke. The silence that followed felt different now. Not heavy. Not threatening. Peaceful. One by one, phones lowered. Employees exchanged quiet looks. The tension that had filled the mansion all night finally began to dissolve. Richard stepped forward. The sound of his shoes echoed softly across the marble floor. He stopped in front of Maya. For a moment, The billionaire who controlled companies worth billions of dollars looked completely ordinary. Human. Maya. His voice was quiet. Thank you? She held his gaze. Then nodded once. Take care of him. She glanced toward Ethan. Richard followed her eyes. I will. This time, he meant it. Morning sunlight had begun creeping through the distant windows. Pale gold reflections stretched across the floor. The night was over. Employees slowly returned to their duties. Charles walked away without saying a word. Richard did not stop him. Some wounds needed silence before healing. Ethan remained beside Maya until the last moment. Will I see you tomorrow? He asked. Maya smiled. You have school tomorrow. Ethan laughed for the first time all night. A real laugh. The kind nobody had heard in months. As she turned toward the exit, the rising sunlight caught the edges of her worn uniform and painted it gold. Richard watched her walk away through the long corridor. Hours earlier, he had only seen a maid. Now all he saw was the person who had quietly saved his son when everyone else failed. Maya never looked back. She did not need to. Behind her, the mansion stood silent in the morning light. Ahead of her, the doors opened. And as she stepped into the sunrise, Ethan's laughter echoed softly through the house. She had changed forever.